One of the biggest claims of IQ is that environment such as the physical environment such as, say, stress, trauma, witnessing violence, as well as the food environment, say, food intake, how healthy food is, the amount of calories people eat affects IQ. And I would say that yes, it does, but not enough to explain the overall real differences in race or racial IQs. I mean, a perfect example, is Asia. North Korea has one of the lowest food intakes in the world, and you can't explain North Korea having the top five highest IQs in the world on the environment. Period. You cannot explain that. All you people who claim that the IQ is beyond genetic really are lacking because you really can't explain North Korea having one of the highest IQs. It does not make sense. Intelligence is probably one of the least environmental factors and one of the most genetic factors because the brain is so complex that if there is a genetic trait that causes a more complex brain structure, that will matter more than the actual food intake. The brain is made out of cholesterol. It's also made out of some fats, some vitamins, protein. It's not made out of fiber. And North Koreans eat diets high in fiber, and they don't really eat much cholesterol or fats or proteins, like I stated. They generally eat very low portions. North Korea has one of the lowest portions of food in the world, and they have one of the highest vegetarian and lowest cholesterol intakes in the world, as well as protein. So that alone does not explain the actual food environment for the highest IQs in East Asia, because it's the same patterns across East Asia. And also, furthermore, to explain that that's not the truth, is that the fact is, within a generation or two of Asian Americans living in America, they generally grow 2 or 3 inches in height because of their general lacking of meat and milk diets over there, as well as their lacking of calories. So when they come to America, they overall the Asians do grow a few inches, a couple inches, because of their starving of nutrients over in Asia, but their IQs don't change when they come here. The IQ of Asian Americans is basically the exact same as China, North Korea, South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong. They're all within 2 or 3 points of each other. And the most striking thing is that North Korea, although has the same IQ as the same range as all those other Asian countries, has a far worse situation. And I think that's very striking and shows that there really is something behind it that's more than just environment. Japan hasn't really had the kind of wars, oppression, government violence, starvation, all these problems that North Korea has, and yet North Korea actually has IQ test scores of 1 point higher than Japan. You can't really explain that out of environment. You could call culture, but by our human knowledge of things, we tend to think of that the culture is influenced by the environment. So therefore, North Korea should considerably have a altered culture because of the environmental differences of war, poverty, starvation. But yet, these North Korean and Asian societies in poverty are still extremely deterministic and extremely hard on themselves, as pretty much all East Asian societies generally are. So, on one hand, we as humans say, oh, the culture is influenced by the environment, but I agree with that to a point, but not the overall amount. As I stated, there's still the similar kind of determined society in North Korea as the rest of East Asia. And the society reflects the people. So say if you have a genetic drift of intelligent people, say you take 100 intelligent people, put them in the room, their focus will be education and intelligence. Take 100 athletes, put them in the room, their focus will be athletics. Right there, that's the beginning of a culture. If you take those two groups, divide them, say for 1,000 years in two separate countries, they will have drastically different cultures and drastic different differences because of their perhaps real genetic differences. If there is an intelligent person who has a genetic tendency towards, say, intelligence and determination, they'll have a deterministic, intelligent society who will value education. If you have an athletic, aggressive society because of aggressive, athletic people living in it. I mean, we even have this kind of thing within our country. I mean, we have the frontier people in Alaska who are kind of a have like a lumberjack kind of society, and then in Florida, you have more of like certain places like Florida, Hawaii, you have more of a female culture. I mean, New York is much more of an open, artistic society. I mean, you have a lot of different things. I mean, and I mean, sometimes it's the actual people. I mean, we always think of Southerners as being rough in America generally, and like, they were the frontier people. They were the people who went straight from England or Scotland and Ireland to go to the frontier and fight the Native Americans, fight for the land conquest. I mean, these were brutal motherfuckers, and that's why there was a brutal culture. I mean, if you have someone who genetically has a brutal genetic trait and you put them in the frontier, then they will have a more brutal culture. And I think that is true. I mean, you can't really explain it. I mean, even crime rates. I mean, the lowest crime rate in the world is in Asia, Burma. I mean, Burma has the same income level as Ethiopia. I mean, Burma has the lowest murder rate in the world. I mean, Burma has a murder rate 25 times lower than America, 25 times. And yet, America has an income level about between 150 and 200 times higher than Burma. So, I mean, you cannot explain by wealth causing this kind of violent tendencies. And you cannot explain North Korea's high IQ on environmental factors. And you can't explain that cultural factors either. I mean, you can't deny that the Asian IQs in East Asia and in America, who have very different environments, still have the same range within the 2 or 3 points for the most part. I mean, I think that shows really a real genetic difference. And I mean, I'm not going to lie to myself. I mean, if there's a real difference, and I'm going to know it. Because I want to know the truth. I'm not one of those fuckers who lives inside my head and pretends the world is a way it's not. Because I am grounded, and that's the way it is, and that's the way it is. And I'm not going to pretend it's this way because it's that way. And that's what my philosophy is. And, I mean, like, for instance, Asians have always had lower crime rates in America. Since the beginning of time. I mean, right now, Asians have lower crime rates than whites, have more education. They have higher wealth. Same thing with Jews. I mean, don't forget, Jews and Asians are minorities. They had quotas. I mean, the Japanese were put in internment camps. They faced major racism. They pulled themselves out to become more successful than whites. And I mean, Jews have a higher level of education in America in the same kind of parallels as the Asians did. And I mean, these are traits that go back even further. Like, the Chinese came to build railroads in the 1800s over in California. And, they lived in horrible ghettos. They made what you would call probably today Mexican wages, like the lowest of the low wages. And they had their towns burned down by white racists. And yet, the actual statistics shows that the Asians making horrible wages, living in horrible ghettos around racism, still had lower crime rates and lower than the actual surrounding white neighborhoods that were middle class in the early days of California. And this Asians having lower crime rates has been a statistic throughout time. And I mean, you can't blame the black problem or the Latino problem of not getting ahead on anything. I mean, they have to take it on themselves to get what they want to get. I mean, you can't just say, oh, someone said something about my race, that means that I have a right to steal or join a gang. I mean, the Asians and Jews, I mean, I'm sure a few of them do, but they generally say, I gotta get ahead and get education and get where I gotta get. Sorry, but I think there's a real genetic difference there. I mean, the Jews have been successful everywhere they've went since the dawn of time, and I say that their IQ, high IQ, is directly responsible for that.